Editor's note: this interview was originally published on May 16th during the Cannes Film Festival. It is being rerun now to coincide with the film's domestic release, and interviews were carried out prior to the SAG-AFTRA strike. Exclusive. In 2016, the hottest book in Hollywood hadn't even been published yet. Circulating in galley proofs, it was the latest nonfiction work from author David Grann, whose 2009 book The Lost City of Z, A Tale of Deadly Obsession in the Amazon, had recently been filmed by James Gray and produced by Plan B. His new book was another mouthful: Killers of the Flower Moon, The Osage Murders, and the Birth of the FBI, and it proved just as tasty. Seven-figure bids materialized, with talent attachments that included Leonardo DiCaprio, George Clooney, Brad Pitt, and J.J. Abrams. The deal ended with a statement by Imperative Entertainment's Dan Friedkin and Bradley Thomas, who went well beyond the bids and took it off the table for $5 million. With Martin Scorsese directing, they would set it up at Paramount, casting DiCaprio alongside Robert De Niro in the most iconic pairing since Michael Mann's Heat with De Niro and Al Pacino, but on opposing sides of the law. Killers of the Flower Moon had all the makings of a classic Western. DiCaprio would play Tom White, an incorruptible Texas Ranger turned FBI agent sent to Oklahoma in the early 1920s by J. Edgar Hoover to answer a desperate call from the Osage Indian Nation. The Osage had recently become the wealthiest people per capita in the world due to the vast supply of oil being harvested from their lands. At the same time, many of them were beginning to die in alarming numbers and under highly suspicious circumstances. It was the perfect setup for a murder mystery, but something didn't feel right. Scorsese, DiCaprio, and De Niro began to realize that the situation was more complex than that. More explicitly, it would be inappropriate to serve up a white savior Western since white people were also the bad guys, the outsiders who insinuated their way into the Osage and took advantage of their naivety. Empowered by apathy from corrupt local law enforcement and townsfolk eager to shake money out of the pockets of their trusting Osage friends. So, Scorsese started over, seizing on the chance to tell a story that would resonate in a modern era, forcing audiences to confront their own darkest instincts. How far would they be willing to go for the love of money? The lightbulb moment came when DiCaprio wondered if the focus should not be the lawman, but rather one of his suspects, Ernest Burkhart. Burkhart is apparently a loving husband, married to Osage tribe member Molly, and they have 3 children together. Molly is at death's door when Tom White, now to be played by Jesse Plemons, arrives. Is Ernest just in it for the money? This much darker take and much more expensive take reportedly led Paramount to back out as financier. But to Apple heads of Worldwide Video Zach Van Amberg and Jamie Ehrlicht, this had the potential to be an important historical epic, a beachhead project for their fledgling film program. They went out and got the package, just the way they did at Sundance with Coda, which went on to become the first Best Picture Oscar winner for a streamer. The deal, orchestrated by Scorsese and DiCaprio's rep Rick Yern, left room for Paramount, which had certain rights. The deal called for a full global theatrical release through Paramount before it lands on the Apple TV Plus streaming site in the heart of awards season. Despite the radical change of angle, De Niro, marking his 10th collaboration with Scorsese, held onto the role of Bill Hale. He is Ernest's uncle, who presents himself as a loving patriarch and ally to members of the Osage, but who enlists his nephew in a nefarious plan to help fulfill his darker motives. I'd read the book a few years earlier, and the Tom White character was more prominent, he says. That was right for the book, but Marty and Leo's idea to focus on the relationship between Bill and Ernest made sense to me. They wanted to focus more on that dynamic instead of Tom White coming in and saving the day. He continues, Tom White and the FBI set up law and order in the Wild West, where laws were made by the people who were right there and felt they could do anything. They were entrenched in the community, and nobody was accountable. It was racism, really. In retrospect, casting De Niro as DiCaprio's uncle was a masterstroke, playing into the idea of family and subverting the concept of the father-son relationship that had developed off-screen. After all, says DiCaprio, my career was launched by doing this boy's life, auditioning with Bob, and then getting the role. Working with him, watching his professionalism and the way he created his character was one of the most influential experiences of my life and career.